Hey guys, so our central question today is how can you find slope using different methods? So we're going to talk about different ways that you can find the slope. So make sure you write down your essential question, and then we're going to get started with some definitions that are reminders, and then we'll get some practice. So if you need to pause it, you can pause it. Make sure you have everything written down before you move on. Remember, these are your notes, and you can go at your own pace. So we're going to talk about some of the definitions of slope and how we can find them. So first off, let's talk about slope. Now, if you remember, slope is steepness. That's an easy definition. So it's steepness. So think about a hill, something that has a slope to it. That's what steepness is. Okay? It's also the change in y over the change in x, which is also the same thing as saying rise over run. And then the more technical definition is the rate of change between any 2 points on a line. So make sure that you get those written down, and then we will move on. So after you have all this done, I'm going to chunk it because we're going to move on to a new section. Now, I know some of you guys are doodlers. I am too. If you notice, I added my little mountains. I know, I'm not that good of an artist. And my little arrows, just to give me reminders. I know visuals help some of you guys, so maybe that's something that you want to do as well. Okay? So now that you are ready, what I want you guys to do is we're going to talk about finding slope from a graph. Now, what I want you to do really quick is I want you to pause your video. If you have a graphing notebook, awesome. If not, you're going to have to take a little bit of time and you're going to need to draw yourself a graph. So do that really quick, pause the video, and then move on. All right, now that you have your graph drawn, I'm going to draw a couple coordinates on here. And then I want you guys to write what those ordered pairs are, okay? So right now, if you need to pause the video, and I want you to write what those two ordered pairs are. So hopefully you wrote down that this one is 2, 1, and hopefully you wrote this one is -1, -3. Okay, so now, if you guys remember how to find slope from a graph, what you can do is you can just count the rise over the run. That's the easy way. Now, before we do that, I am going to show you how to do it with the formula just because I think it's important that you know. So if you remember, the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It doesn't matter what one is 1 or 2. So I'm going to say that this one is 1, this one is 2, and remember that you have x and then y. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug these numbers in for the formula. So for y2, I'm going to use -3 minus y1, which is 1, over x2, -1, minus x1, which is 2. Okay? So then, -3 minus 1, that's -4, and -1 minus 2 would be -3. And then, if you remember, negative divided by a negative is a positive, so your answer would be 4/3. Now, we can check it on the graph. Now remember, these two would be 2 points on a line. I know, my line's not very straight. That's okay. So the way to check it would be to actually count the rise over the run. Now, what I've been telling you guys is kind of like make a triangle to connect them. That's going to make it a little bit easier, okay? And then you're going to count how many you rise, how many you run. Now remember, you do not count the one that you start on. So you're going to go up, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's your rise. And then you're going to run, 1, 2, 3. So if you notice, we got the same exact slope counting on the graph as we did with the formula. Okay? So this right here is a positive slope. Okay? So it's a positive slope of 4/3. So if you did not get that, I'll make sure you pause it before you move on. Now we're going to do another example. So again, if you do not have graphing paper, you need to draw a quick graph and then make sure that you are ready to plot a couple of points. Okay? So I'm going to give you 2 different points. There's one of them. There's the other. So, same thing right now. Pause the video, write down the coordinates, and then this time you don't have to use the formula, just find the rise over the run on the graph and see what you get. So hopefully for your ordered pairs, you got -1, 1, and then you got 1, -2. Now remember, these are 2 points on a line. Okay? And like I said, if you want to make that triangle to make it a little easier to see, you can. Remember, it's rise over run, so do the rise first. So you're going down 1, 2, 3. Remember, when you're going down, that's a negative number. And then you go right, 1, 2. So that means that you have a negative slope. So this is what a negative graph looks like. And your slope would be -3/2. This is what I've been telling you all year, that improper fractions are okay. We're going to be using them in slope. Okay? So make sure you have it, and then do yourself a favor. Draw yourself another graph so that you're ready for our next problem. So far we have a positive graph, we have a negative graph, and hopefully you know what's probably coming next. So I'm going to give you 2 points. And this time you should already kind of know right away what's happening. If you look at that line, you can see that there is no change. If you look at the ordered pairs, you have -2, 2, and then you have 2, 2. So you guys can see right now that nothing is changing with the y. Okay? And even if you guys plug this into the formula, y minus y, 2 minus 2 over 2 minus -2, it doesn't really matter what's on the bottom. Because 0 divided by anything is always just what? Well, 0 divided by anything is always just 0. So this right here is a 0 slope. And the trick to that is you're going to know it's a 0 slope because the y coordinates are the same. Because think about it. Y minus y is always going to be 0 because they're the same number. And then 0 divided by anything, even if you put that 4 on the bottom, because negative times a negative is a positive, it doesn't matter. Because anything divided by 0 is just 0. And you guys can see that there's no change. It's just a straight across line. Okay? So make sure you're good, pause it, and then you need to draw one more graph. And then you'll be good with graphing for today. Alright, and for our last graph, I'm going to again give you a couple points. And then remember that the 2 points lie on a line. So write down the coordinates, and then we will move on. So if you need to pause it, whatever you need. So if you look at these, this is 2, 3, and this is 2, -1. So right now you should already be able to tell me what kind of line this is, but if not, that's okay. We're actually going to plug it into the formula. So we know that the formula is y minus y over x minus x. So I'm going to start with this one. So I'm going to take -1 minus 3. So y minus y, and since I started with -1, I have to start with the same x coordinate. So then it's 2 minus 2, okay? So y minus y over x minus x. So right here, -1 minus 3, well, that's -4, and 2 minus 2 is 0. So right now, you should be able to stop, because that should tell you something. You need to remember that you cannot divide by 0. 0 is not allowed to be on the bottom, and division by 0 is undefined. Therefore, that means that this line is undefined. If you guys remember, slope has to be a non-vertical line. That means it has to have a positive slope, a negative slope, or a 0 slope. It's not allowed to go straight up and down. That's what we call undefined. Okay? And hopefully you notice that the trick on this one is when the x's are the same. When the x's are the same, that's going to let you know that it's always undefined. Okay? So make sure you have it written down. And then I'm actually going to chunk my notes because the next part we're going to do is tables, and then we are almost done with notes for the day. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about is how to find slope from a table. So I'm just going to draw a table really quick. It's not going to be perfect. And then we're going to go over the steps to find the slope. Okay? So here's my table. X and Y. Okay, and then we're going to have 1, 4, 7, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. So right now you can make your table. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. So I suggest you pause it, write down those numbers, and then we'll move on. All right, so now that we have our table, let's talk about the steps. So step 1 is choose any 2 points. Now personally, I always try to just pick the easy ones. So I'm going to go with these guys. Okay? So I'm going to choose those. So I'm just going to rewrite them over here so they're a little easier to read. Okay? So I have 1, 8, and 4, 6. Notice it's X, Y, X, Y. Okay, that's why I wrote them like that. Step 2 is plug into the formula. Hopefully you have the formula memorized. If not, write yourself a reminder that it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And if you need to label xy, xy, and you want to label this one's 1, that one's 2, whatever you need to do. Okay? So let's plug it into the formula. So we're going to do y2 minus y1, 6 minus 8 over x2 minus x1, 4 minus 1. Okay? So we plugged it in. And then your last step, step 3, is just to simplify. So that means just solve it. So 6 minus 8 is -2, right? And 4 minus 1 is 3. So that means that you're done, and that's your slope. And you should get the same number with any of these on here. So any of these that you choose will still give you that same slope, okay? So pause it, and then I'm going to give you guys one more to practice on your own, okay? Okay, so now that you have the steps, I want you to try this one on your own. So pause the video, try it on your own, it's going to help you out, and then when you're done and you're ready, start it again so you can see what the answers are. All right, so I don't know what coordinates you picked, so I actually did 3 different ones. And if you notice, all of my work gave me the same exact slope, okay? So that's why I said pick any 2 points, plug them in, and simplify. So hopefully this makes slope a little bit easier to understand and that you guys feel a little more comfortable with it. So if you need to, make sure you go back through your notes, pause, and copy down whatever you need.